The views and opinion expressed in this podcast are those of the host and guests and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of M.A.P.S Media or its affiliates. This content is provided for informational and entertainment purposes only and should not be construed as professional advice, political endorsements, or the official stance of any organization mentioned. Basically, we talk shit. You listen, and M.A.P.S Media stays drama-free. And this podcast is not for children, because we cuss. Let's get it.
Yo, it's time to rise, make your choice. We vote to amplify your voice. We vote to breaking through. Every voice matters, yes, you. Yes,
we vote. First, it was cracks. Now it's a full-blown rupture. The American two-party system is holding on by a thread. And the scissors to that? The so-called One Big Beautiful Bill is on its way to being signed by Trump. If the GOP can actually agree on the monstrosity of a bill they enabled and created.
Now, Republicans are about to make a mistake on health care and betraying a promise.
Now, at the same time, Democrats are busy icing out their very own. In New York, Zohran Mamdani won the Democratic mayor primary. He's a self-proclaimed Democratic socialist. But the DNC, silent. No praise, no support. It's as if his victory didn't count because it wasn't on the DNC's terms. But let's keep it real. Is a third party even viable in this country? It's not just about vibes and values. It's about ballot access, money, and muscle. Most states make it brutally hard for third parties to even get on the ballot, let alone compete. You need tens of thousands of signatures, lawyers, and a bank account that can survive legal challenges. And then there's the media blackout. No coverage, no name recognition, no momentum. Take Jesse Ventura in Minnesota. He pulled it off. Ran as an independent, beat the establishment, and won the governor's race in '98. Why? Charisma, coalition building, and strategy that hit local working class issues hard.
To my campaign committee, I won't name them today, but for everyone that did work on the campaign, we shocked the world.
But then look at Matthew Hoh in North Carolina, a former Marine and a Green Party Senate candidate. He couldn't even get on the ballot in 2022 because of a coordinated effort by the Democrats to block his certification, even after he collected the required signatures. That's how stacked the system is. So while the third party sounds good and might be necessary, the path forward is rocky, expensive, and designed to fail. But if enough people get mad enough, organized enough, and strategic enough, it could actually work. So here we are. The left is splintering, the right is reeling, and millions of voters are asking, what's left for them? And that's where the third-party conversation kicks in. And grassroots movements are already talking about strategy, local wins, coalition building, and challenging the binary choices that box voters in for decades. The truth is, a third party doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be honest, transparent, and willing to speak to the people who feel completely unrepresented right now. Because if neither party is listening, who will? I got a true celebrity in the building, and I know I don't have him for a long time because he's super busy, but I'm excited that he's here. And welcome back to We Vote Too, the podcast where ballots are cast, opinions may clash, but civic engagement shouldn't feel like a chore, but a conversation. And if you're gonna argue about politics with your uncle on Facebook, you might as well come prepared. That's what I'm here to do. Today, we are gonna discuss a topic that is near and dear to, I believe, this next guest's heart. We've talked about this conversation multiple times. The case for a third party in politics and considering the viability of a third party option is bossed up as the producer for Tavis Smiley on KBLA 1580. He is a sharp voice for the Afro LA News. He was a 2022 AT&T Black Future Maker and a media consultant. He's doing big things behind the curtains. I have the pleasure of bringing on Farajii Muhammad to We Vote Too. That was a lot. So you've been doing a lot.
It doesn't feel like it. First and foremost, I want to say thank you, Leise, for the opportunity to have this conversation. I'm really, really excited about it. I've been thinking about it all week. And so I'm like, all right, now I feel prepared to have this conversation.
I'm glad because we've gotten into, I'm not going to say debates.
No.
I'm not going to say debate. Well, maybe, because like we've been on different sides of this issue.
Right.
The 2024 election passed. We weren't in the same place when it passed, so we didn't really get a chance to speak about it. But before then, Cornel West was running, and I know you were a big advocate for perhaps going that route.
Right.
So I want to talk to you now that the 2024 election has passed.
Yeah.
Do you think that maybe the people that did go that route for Cornel West, was that a mistake? Or are the people that voted for Kamala Harris, are we looking at this the wrong way?
Well, I think, and I know some people are going to get mad at me about this, but at the end of the day, I think some people will say we're looking at this the wrong way, right? And I think that's the important part about politics, is that you can look at politics from a number of different lenses. And for us right now, I think it's super, super important that we keep in mind that there are many different interests out there. And more importantly, there are a lot of different voices. And the political landscape of this country has changed and is changing at an ever fast, ever rapid pace. So it's not just one thing. We're going to stick with it. You're going to have to shift because people's attitudes. Politics is rooted in people's attitudes. Politics is rooted in people's values. Politics is rooted in people's beliefs. And guess what, Leise? That's all changing right now. That is all changing. What we thought was going to be the order of the day 10 years ago is not the order of the day now. We just saw that with the Roe v. Wade. That stood for nearly 50 years. And then boom, a new decision comes out from the Supreme Court and changes everything. We see the same thing with going on with diversity, equity, inclusion, DEI policies. We thought, that's going to stick around for a while. Well, that's changed a lot. So you have to figure out where you stand. And the good thing about this is that this is not a time for us to disengage. I think this is a time for us to ramp up our engagement and get more involved and more rooted in what we truly believe, what we value, and most importantly, get rooted in speaking up and speaking truth to power.
We are in the minority here in the U.S. The way that we actually vote here and the fact that we only have two parties is an anomaly. We are like one of the only places that does that.
Right.
But I just kind of like going back to, I guess, people who voted for Jill Stein. Jill Stein has been running and running and running. And it seems that the only thing she's really good at doing is the spoiler effect. And that's kind of what happened. I don't know if with Dr. Cornel.
No, technically it hasn't. Jill Stein, Cornel West, they weren't spoilers. Not in this election. This is not the election. I think if you look at the numbers, I think it's less than like 5% that they actually took. Like, even smaller than that. They weren't spoilers. And I've heard so many people say that, that narrative, like, they spoiled the election. No, it wasn't spoiled by Jill Stein and Dr. Cornel West. As a matter of fact, you have to look at who voted for Trump. Latino men, Asians, Black men. That's who voted for Trump. And it's not about, these are the voices. I think it is healthy. And I think, some folks have agreed that it is healthy for a democracy to have different people on the ballots, right? And that's what we're talking about is like, what is this third party idea? To have different people on the ballot is something healthy. It shows that people are interested and that they're willing to get engaged. When you just have two candidates like a Joe Biden and Donald Trump, or Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, two major political parties, and they have not spoken to the interests of the people, then guess what? Democracy, quote unquote, calls for a different level of representation. And I think that's the part that we sometimes tend to forget, that it's a different level of representation. You may not agree with it. You may not even like it. But guess what? That's what democracy calls for, representation for the people. Because everybody's not signed up to be a Republican, nor are they signed up to be a Democrat. They want to have their voices heard. And so I think it's healthy for other candidates to jump into the fight and be that voice for those groups that feel like they've been marginalized or disenfranchised.
I don't disagree with you. I think that it's absolutely a necessity for more people to be in politics. I don't disagree there. But just looking back at 2024, let's take Michigan. So a state like Michigan, they were in fact spoilers because in that particular state, when I'm looking it up, it says Stein, Dr. West, and Oliver exceeded Trump's margin in several states. It's like Wisconsin is one of them, and in Michigan. So they pulled those left-leaning votes, which from a lot of the Arab American, because they were like, if you're not going to vote, a lot of them did vote for Trump. So there was a nice amount of them that went for Trump. But they said, if you're not going to vote for Trump, vote for Stein. And that is what happened. And so a state like that, it's possible that had gotten more people.
Yeah. On a statewide level, it could. It definitely could. I can see that. I can definitely see that. But on a larger scale, those numbers don't add up to the point that it destroyed Trump or it destroyed Kamala Harris's chances of becoming president of the United States. Black women, of course, I see a lot of sisters that say, well, I'm part of the 92. We knew black women came out for the vice president. And then you saw it. I don't know if people really understand, but black men actually came out for the vice president, and 80 to 85%, close to 90% of black men voted for Vice President Kamala Harris. So that whole idea that no black man wanted to see a black woman in power, that doesn't cut the mustard, as they say, because that's not true when you look at the final numbers. But I think that we have been spending so much time focusing on those who have moved or shifted, those black men who have voted for Donald Trump and whatnot, that they become the core part of the conversation. And he only needed to get a slither of black men or slither of Latino men and women. He only needed to get a small slice of that pie to kind of get him over. But what got him there, right? What really got him there is not just about messaging or anything else. He tapped into something that I think that there was a level of disenfranchisement. He kind of presented himself as this superhero political figure. And at the same time, he also presented himself to be an outsider of Washington, right? And he kind of showed that, I'm gonna come into office and I'm gonna do some damage, which he's doing. He's like, I'm gonna knock the walls down. I'm going to rebuild the house, which he's doing.
That is very true. And I think a lot of it is a distraction because a lot of people don't want to put the onus on the people that they actually should look at, which are white women. White women voted overwhelmingly for Donald Trump in this past election. But now that we're talking about minorities, this actually brings up a great point, especially for third party, because it sounds like this is a conversation we've been having in elections for a while about black men feeling like the Democrats are not speaking to them. Right. And the Republicans, it's like with Chris Brown, you outside of the club, but you can't really get in. Like they will only allow you to go but so far, because as much as we have the Ninja Turtle from South Carolina, he is not in Trump's administration. As much as he was shucking and jiving, and he did not get in. So with that said, there is a place for a third party. But how do we get there? So when you have all of these voters, because shouldn't we be doing something now? I think this is the conversation that I was talking to you about a while ago. It seems like they say third party and then nothing happens, and we don't hear from Jill Stein. We don't hear from anybody. How do we start?
I think you're absolutely right. And I think that this is the best time for us to have a conversation about third party. Look, change does not come out of stability. Change comes out of uncertainty. Let me just say that one more time. Change does not come out of stability. It comes out of uncertainty. And so if you're in a space like we're in right now, the Democrats don't know how to really move. We're starting to see some sense of, we saw with Senator Cory Booker and his marathon speech. We see AOC and Bernie Sanders out on the Fighting Oligarchy tour. And, we're starting to see some semblance of quote unquote some resistance, but not full-fledged Democratic Party resistance. We even seen where the vice chair of the Democratic Party, David Hogue, who is the 25-year-old from the victim survivor from the Parkland shooting years ago, he has ascended to become the vice chair, the youngest vice chair of the Democratic National Committee. But even he has decided to take his organization and put some money behind them, and more importantly, start to challenge the incumbent Democrats. Now, check this out. He's a Democrat challenging incumbent Democrats who are old and antiquated in their ways. And so he's putting money and resources behind them to do that. So when you're talking about all of those things, right, happening, this is the perfect time for Black people in particular in this country to say, you know what can we do? Now, you talked about Jill Stein, Dr. Cornel West, and others, but I can specifically say I've spoken to Dr. West here in LA on a number of occasions about this idea of a third political party. Even though he didn't ascend to this position, personally, I don't think that it was Dr. West's full motivation to be in the White House as much as it was to raise awareness about an alternative view of what politics should be. And I think that for him, he started the Justice Party for All, right? And so when you're looking at the brilliance, when you're looking at the guidance and you listen to the wisdom of a person such as Dr. West, and he's saying, look, I'm going to get the ball rolling. I'm going to make sure that we can lay the foundation. His Justice Party has been approved in a number of states across this country. So it's like, okay, let's take a Dr. West Justice Party. Where can we possibly go with that? You got the Working Family Party with Senator Nina Turner out of Ohio, right? You got people that are on the ground who have started to, even like institutionalize this idea of a third party, but at the same time, it's got to build momentum. The people, those of us who are wondering what's going to be the future, those of us who are saying that something has to change, something has to be different. You got people already who are laying the groundwork, who are putting the paperwork in, getting the necessary documentation, who actually have third parties that are outlined on paper, but they just need the enthusiasm and the engagement from the people. Let me just throw this out there for another piece. If you did not know, 2 weeks ago, former campaign advisor, strategist, he's a major voice in the Democratic Party. He's been like this since the 90s. And I'm speaking of Mr. James Carville. James Carville came on record to say, at least 2 weeks ago, that he believes that more people in lawmaking decisions, Democratic lawmaking decisions, are more prone to a centrist view, right? And he kind of lashed out. He said this on his own podcast a couple of weeks ago. And you folks, y'all can just Google it. But he lashes out at progressives. And the thing he's told progressives is, it's time for us to create, for you to leave the Democratic Party. No lie, just said it just how he is. He's from Louisiana. He's like, he's not mincing any words. He said, I think the Justice Party, the Working Family Party, the Democratic Socialists, you should start your own party. And then he even goes a step further, Lise. He says, not only should you start your own party, he said, don't add the word Democrat to your new party. He's suggesting that progressives who are in a much more modern view of things, leave the Democratic Party and start your own thing. Now, here's a man who put Bill Clinton in office. Here's a man who's been in the political space for decades. And now he's finally coming to the point and say, y'all holding us back as a Democratic Party. Do your own thing. To me, this is a sign that maybe, we should really have some different conversations. Now, whether the Democratic National Committee, the Democratic Party is going to listen to a James Carville at this day and time, or whether they're going to still hold on to those progressives who are pushing the party in a much more, equal and a much more inclusive space, that is yet to be seen. But for him to come on record and say, y'all need to leave the Democratic Party and start your own thing, I think that's very telling.
Yeah, and I think that eventually we will get somewhere like that, where there's a viable third party issue that we have when we are constructing or trying to construct a third party. A lot of the third party voters are one issue voters. That becomes a problem if everything in the campaign is about that one issue. Thanks. Then you're not really running a full campaign. I know that Dr. Cornel West, he had like a whole platform, like of different things that he was working on. So it wasn't just one thing. But when you look at Stein's campaign, the most that she was running on was anti-war campaign. Like that was really what she was running on, and that's how she was pulling people away. So how do we even, especially with a lot of minority voters, when you're looking at like Arab and Muslim voters? So what, in 2024, 53% of Muslim voters back Stein. Like that's a lot of people. Like how do we create and engage? If so, we're trying to create a third party. How do you engage minorities though?
But here's the other part of that. Here's the other part of that. How many Muslim voters? Okay, 53% of those voters back Stein, but how many Muslim voters are there in total? Right, and then you got to look at what does that number look like compared to those who actually come out to vote. Right. So when we're doing the metrics, we have to look at all of those numbers, right? Because you got to ask yourself, is appealing to that part of the voting base, how much time, attention, effort, resources, how much do you put into that, right? And I think that's the bigger question that we have to ask ourselves. But to your point of being one issue voters, I think that that's a lot. And unfortunately, that's what we've seen on the Republican side, even with putting Trump back into office. That there was this a la carte, like, people tend to believe, he might have sexually assaulted a woman, and his character is questionable, and he filed for bankruptcy 4, 5, 6 times, but he knows what he's doing. He knows how to get things done.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? And I'm not saying that everything about a person you're going to agree with. I think that, Leise, like I always kind of make this joke that you're probably going to agree with 60 to 70% of your political representative, right? Maybe 60. If you got a 60% approval rating of your political representative, that's big. That's pretty high.
That's really high.
Right? 60%, 70% you agree with them on. You're not going to agree with no political representative for 100%. You know what I mean? I heard the minister say one time that there's no leader that got 100% approval from any people, right? There's always going to be some group or somebody that's not going to agree with you. You're not going to get 100%. But if you get 60 or 70% of you agreeing with your political representative, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. But the point is like, if you're looking at those one issues, you got to look at what issue is the most. Is it's going to be the Gaza issue versus the domestic issue versus how this person is going to handle, civil rights and human rights, how this person is going to handle these things. When we look at it, we're about to embark on the 100th day of Trump in office is April the 30th. And when you look at that first 100-day marker, that this is a unofficial marker that came up during, I believe it was President Roosevelt, who kind of started the first 100 days marker. And that was to give the country a sense of where this person is going. In the first 100 days, this has been the most chaotic start to any presidency in American history, with more executive orders than mixtapes from Lil Wayne back in the day. You feel what I'm saying? Like, it was crazy. The man has still signed a larger swath of executive orders just last week. So when you're looking at all of these things happening, you got to ask yourselves, is that one issue enough for me to bring that person's back? It's just like a relationship with somebody. You might like somebody, but there are a couple of behavior patterns that you're like, I'm not really feeling this.
I agree on that. But also pushing back.
You know what I'm saying? But is that the make or break point for you? For some people, it is. For some people, it is. But for voters, when you got to deal with a joker and their policies and their decisions and their appointments for years to come, you better think much deeper about whether you will live or die on one issue or not.
So if the issue is we have this one party voter issue, and then we also see what's happening right now, right? So we see that Trump is trying to build a regime. It's not even an administration at this point. We are in a full-on constitutional crisis. He is not listening to the courts. He's writing executive orders. Are you saying that maybe we should pull back right now from a third-party option because it could sway away from a potential Democratic? No?
I think that we should go full blown into making the third party a reality, but it's going to take some time. We can't expect, this is 2025 now. So the next election is the congressional election in 2026. In 2026. So between now and 2026, can we go full blown? Can we possibly get prepared for an election in 2028? Maybe by that time we can have a third party up and running and could present a couple of candidates to at least be on the stage, right, in 2028 for debates, right, a viable candidate. But are we going to get a person in office in 2028? Probably not. But the way things are moving, who knows? I mean, that's the uncertainty part about it. But then that's also the opportunity that's also there before us, right? Remember with Hurricane Katrina, when it hit the city of New Orleans, right? It's always about, and you started off this conversation, Leise, about the lens in which we're looking at things. When Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans, if y'all remember, people were looking at it, the tragedy, the devastation, everything. It was just seemed like the city of New Orleans may never recover from Hurricane Katrina. And so while some of us, especially those of us on the East Coast, those of us who are watching it and saw all of these people in their homes and floods and everything just happening, we could not get out of seeing this as a tragedy. Well, guess who saw it as an opportunity? Developers. People who go into cities and states and they develop communities. That's who saw that as they looked through the lens of an opportunity. They said, oh, you have this natural disaster. I'm going to come in and propose and bid and set up things for the city of New Orleans that are working to my interest. That's the same thing I think we need to do here. Change the lens to see that as much as it is a tragedy, as much as it is as horrendous about what Trump is doing, from everything from public education to what we're seeing with DEI to all of the stuff that we're seeing. This is an opportunity because why? Change happens when things are uncertain. And I think that's the big part of this process, right? Like, we can't just disengage. And I know, Leise, I've heard a lot of sisters in particular, and I even heard some brothers who are saying, I'm part of the 92, right? They said that in the recent rallies that have the anti-Trump rallies, they have this, what they call the 50-51 movement, right? These are folks who are pushing back on Trump and going out into the streets. And we've been seeing a number of rallies, whether it's Earth Day that just happened or any other moment that's been happening around everything from the Kilmar Garcia case to whoever. In the recent in all of these rallies, they're saying what? Black people are not present. We're not leading the rallies, these past few rallies, right? We're not out there. It's been white people. It's been Latinos. We're not out there. And so folks have been asking the question, and it's been like an ongoing conversation. Where are Black protesters? Where are Black people? And a lot of us say, I'm stepping back. I'm resting. And I get it, because resting is resistance in some way. But I don't think that we should completely disengage from the conversation, because why? We live here.
True. We do.
Our children. Now, unless you're going to move to a different country, I don't have the means and the resources to move to Africa. To uproot the family and say, hey, man, I couldn't even move to, we can't even move to Canada right now. Because they don't want us.
Right.
They like, man, you can keep that madness to yourself.
Facts. But they don't want us.
People are looking, and you got to ask yourself,
like, stay where you are.
We call for the destruction of the country, but we still live here. We call for the fall, and I'm not saying that the country doesn't need to feel the wrath of justice. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that while it's still daylight, as the scriptures say, while it's still daylight, you work. While it's still some semblance of daylight, let's work to build a new reality, right? As much as we can. God helps those who help themselves. That's what I truly, truly believe. If we get out there into the streets, we get out there and start connecting and organizing like you and I have been doing for years, Leise, that people, this is the ripe and fertile time for people to get involved and engage. This is the ripe and fertile time. If things were stable, I had to step back and think about this myself. If Vice President Kamala Harris was in office right now, what would be the state of the mindset of black people in this country? We would have felt like, okay, we've won a victory. We can kind of like let off the gas. Now we're in a different time. But I think it's a different time because I think we're in a divine time. America needs to change. And guess what? It's going to change because God has ordained it to change. And he's going to use however he's going to use whatever the winds of the circumstances of our lives is going to push us to change. But this is the time for us to get more engaged and involved. Not saying you got to be out there in the rallies, but at least start thinking about what is the future, right? Whatever future that this country has, what is the future? Where do I see myself and where do we see our children and our grandchildren? What is going to be the future of this country and where do we see ourselves in it?
But if we're really talking about changing politics and putting out electoral reforms and trying to get things on the ballot, if you want ranked choice voting, we're going to have to propose it. Like, it's not just going to happen. And that doesn't happen by doing nothing. Maybe not at the rally, you know what I mean? Maybe not at the hands off rally, but we should be working on or doing something. And I think that a ranked choice voting may help a third party option.
Yep.
Maybe. You guys do have, I think in Oakland, I think they have some level of ranked choice voting. And in certain places, they have ranked choice voting. Because I think Barbara Lee, didn't she just win?
Barbara Lee, she just won. She's a progressive she's progressive. She just won in the city of Oakland for the mayor seat there. I'm thinking also of my brother, going back to my brother, Ras Baraka, who's the mayor. He's running for governor, governor of the state of New Jersey, right? Progressive, deep progressive. His father, Amiri Baraka. I work with his sister, Dominique DePrima, who is his sister here in Los Angeles. Like, his family is deep in the movement of history and arts and culture and whatnot, right? So you have people popping up. You have progressive black folks who are progressives in positions of power. We just got to support them, right? Mm-hmm. And again, and look, check this out. Here's the other opportunity for us, right? A lot of our efforts in emphasis has always been placed on federal government, on national. Trump is making it where it's all going to be local and statewide stuff, right? So this is the perfect time for us to get engaged because now we can see how our engagement will actually affect the quality of life for us. We're not 10 years down the road, because you got to remember, and I'm not saying you, but I'm saying folks got to remember, national policies, they do affect us, right? But they take time to impact us on a day-to-day level. But state stuff, local stuff, oh man, they affect us like next day, next week. You know what I'm saying? Next month. If the state decides to raise the minimum wage at, say, oh, come July 1st, you're going to see a change on that, right? My point is, state engagement is powerful right now. And this is where Trump is putting all of his power. This is the idea. This has been a part of the Republican, I would say, platform for many, many years, that they get state control. But and if you look at it historically, when the civil rights movement was taking place with our people, it was states that had the power. And so that's why on a federal level, they needed to have, they need to institutionalize the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department. They have a Civil Rights Division of the Department of Education. Like, they had to create these departments because the states weren't doing right by the citizens, right? And by the constituents. So if you're talking about getting into a fight or getting into a place where you can feel the change each and every day on your life, it's on a state and local level. All politics is local. My brother, Ras Baraka, who is the mayor of the city of Newark, New Jersey, said that. All politics are local. If you don't understand that that's how it works, and now with the Trump administration in power, that's where the real power grab is going to have to happen. There are so many states in this country that are Republican-led states that have Republican legislators. These are so many states in this country that need to be challenged. Yes, we can. Look, I tell people all the time, talking about Trump is not revolutionary. That's nothing. I mean, he an easy target. I'm sorry, he an easy target. And he doesn't care to be the easy target. But dealing with folks on a state level, Now that's where this situation happens. Like here in the state of California, you know, we were talking about reparations, right? And for a minute, everybody thought that the reparations conversation would be advanced because we're in a state like California. It has nothing to do with national politics. We have a Democratic governor. And guess what? Reparations did not happen the way we wanted it to happen in the state of California under a Democratic governor, right? So that just goes to show us that we still got some serious work to do on a state level, and we can't forget that. We can't forget that.
You mentioned Gavin Newsom. I believe that he has a very strong, I think he's trying to move away from his progressive roots and he's more centrist now because he said a couple things recently that are like, okay, I see it. It's happening again, Democrats. It's happening again. He's probably going to be one of the front runners for the Democratic Party in 2028. From a third party lens, though, who could even step toe to toe as a third party, right? Independent against somebody like a Gavin Newsom? Do you think it's possible?
Oh, I think it's certainly possible. I think we just have to do our research and we have to, you know, go to the soil or go hit the grounds to figure out who the voices are. You know what I'm saying? I definitely think it's possible. I think the winds of change is upon us at this point. So I don't think that just because you have a Gavin Newsom in the fight or in the conversation that no one else can be there, right? I mean, look, Kamala Harris is considering running for governor of the state of California. Now, the people that I've been talking to, it's a mixed bag. Some people say yes, you know, she should run. She's from California and all of those things. But then the other folks are like, it might open up the door that if she's the governor of California and she has a contentious relationship with a President Trump, that California may suffer as a result of her being in office. So it's a mixed bag about her. But I think we just have to mind the fields, as they say, to see who are those progressive voices. We have to create the space for progressivism. And I think it's time, you know, there's an article in the Nation magazine, I believe it's talking about rethinking what progressivism looks like in 2025 and forward. What does that mean? What does that look like, right? Is it just about your stance on war? Is it just about your stance on LGBTQIA issues? Is it your stance? Like, what does that really mean right now, right? Bernie Sanders, even though he has ran a couple of times, I think that some of his ideas should still be accepted in some ways, right? In terms of looking at the system of capitalism. Look, let me tell you, there are so many people who are really questioning the system of capitalism right now. And I'm not just talking about progressives. I'm not even just talking about black people. I'm talking about white people in this country. There's a great economist, a legendary economist by the name of Richard Wolff. He wrote a book called Understanding Capitalism. And when you listen to Richard Wolff, he breaks it down, Leise, as to why capitalism is not the system that is best for America as we continue to evolve and get more diverse. It's becoming a system of a feudal system. I'm speaking of FEUDAL, a feudalist system where it's you have a small number of people at the top with the power, and the rest of us, we're trying to figure it out. And so we are looking at a lot of changes. I mean, fundamental, institutional, foundational changes in this country. And again, I don't think this is the time for us to be afraid. I think it's the time for us to be like those developers down in New Orleans and see an opportunity and just ask around. Because I believe this. If change is going to come, and I think it is, right? And, you know, there's the saying that 100% change, this has come from the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. He said that if you have a 100% dissatisfaction brings about a 100% change. If the dissatisfaction is as high as the media has put it out to be, is as high as people on social media has put it out to be, then that means that those progressive leaders are going to crop up. They're going to pop up. You don't need to look for them. They're going to emerge from the dirt. They're going to emerge from the ashes of the old as we go into the new.
Be honest, even on the Democratic side or the Republican side, we usually don't know who those people are going to be until closer to the election because that junior senator from Illinois came out of nowhere. No one, no one knew.
Yeah.
So I think that if we want a third party, we need to start now because it is going to be so much competition because whoever the Democrats put up is going to be incredibly progressive.
Well, either that or they can go revert back to what they can just revert back to this whole situation, right? And then say, oh, okay, the progressivism didn't work, so let's go back to their old example of a white male who looks good, has a family. Go back to that formula. But to your point, I think that would be the wrong move. I think that would be the wrong move. What we need today is somebody different and fresh and somebody that can speak about it, right? Not just give us a bunch of fluff. We need people that are serious about this, right? And if you remember when President Barack Obama was running, people used to laugh at the fact that he was a community organizer, that he worked with people. They try to diminish him and downplay him. But at the end of the day, we need people that understand the plight, that understand the struggles, and that understand the heart of the American people. What does that mean? What does that look like? We have to have somebody that's on the ground that is in touch with that. Billionaires, corporate elite, Hollywood elites, all of those people, I'm telling you, they're completely disconnected from reality. Even in Los Angeles here, it's like people think that you're going to walk out into a city and it's going to be paved with gold, and there's this opportunity. It's opportunity. Just go up the Hollywood Hills and you'll find where opportunity is. It doesn't work that way. There are real people in this great city that go to work every day, that are trying to figure things out, that are trying to do the best for themselves and for their families, that do have good ideas. I mean, this is the, I always tell people I live in the real LA. I don't live in the fake LA. I don't live in the shiny part. I live in the real LA where people hustle. People are trying to figure this thing out. People are trying to make ends meet and make things happen. But more importantly, we need somebody to come from that. And I don't even care if it's a black person, if it's a Latino person, but you gotta have the heart, the mind, the spirit, the character of somebody that should be in office representing. You don't have to be Jesus.
No, but we do have us, like I am still a progressive. We have a perfectionism problem. We do.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to look. Even if Jesus was among us, he would not be a part of this system because it's completely counter to what he stood for.
Right. Right.
I mean, it's kind of funny thinking about it, but Jesus would not be running for office in this system because
he wouldn't rock with us.
He
would hate capitalism.
He hated capitalism. So how you going to think like, man, this person doesn't seem to have all of it. Jesus hates capitalism. He hated, I think he would be more aligned with the likes of a Dr. King. He hates militarism. He hates all of the isms that has divided people, right? But the one thing he threw the table over in the temple, that just goes to the money changers. That just goes to show you it's not about profit. It's been about people.
Yeah, and that's why third party. I mean, that's my biggest concern about third parties because of the suspicion. Because like I said, on the progressive side, it is a perfectionism problem. It's like you gotta check all of these boxes. You can never say anything wrong. It has to be. I was like, oh, like I get it, but we do need to get to a place where we are viable, and we need a plan. One of the things that I noticed, and we'll wrap this up soon, but one of the things that I noticed is that there is a lack of an actual plan. Like we get a lot of, it's sort of like the Trump thing, but we don't have the privilege of that. The Republicans have the privilege of lying through their teeth and they just go with it. Yeah. So if you just give me fluff, like, I want to end all homelessness. How? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'd love that for you. And
That's. Hey, Lise, you and I. This is when me and Lise are on the same page. We're both system thinkers because you got to break it down to the least common denominator for us to understand this, right? Like as you grow in your political awareness, you start to ask questions like, how are we going to do this? It's not just like, oh, like you say, I want to end homelessness. We got a homeless problem in LA. How is that going to happen? What does that look like? How long will it take? You got to start asking questions, right? The moment, this is how you know you're getting into a level of consciousness when you start asking questions. Well, why did this happen? How did this happen? When you start asking questions and that's when you know that consciousness is evolving within yourself, right? That's when you know that you're starting to go somewhere. If you're not asking why or how, what's going on around you, and some people, at least I'm sure you've come across them just like as much as I've come across folks, I'm not political. And anytime somebody tells me I'm not political, I say, you don't understand what that word means. Politics is not just about voting. Politics is having a view. Politics is, what is your view? We all got views. That's why social media is so important. That's why it makes it such a powerful tool, because that's everybody's politics being discussed. So you can't say I'm not political, but you're on social media every time a story comes out. You're the first one to have something to say. That's your politics, right? That's your belief system. That's rooted, it comes out of your beliefs. It comes out of your values. It comes out of how you see the world. That's your politics. So it's not about that you're not political. You just don't want to be engaged in this system of things, but we don't have the liberty. We don't have the time. We don't have it's too much at stake. And I'm not saying you got to go out there in the streets today, but it behooves all of us to at least have some understanding, some inkling of what this world was happening in this world. Because and I'm saying to black folks in particular, if you're just talking about, man, I'm just going to get me a job, get money, you know what I'm saying? And you listening to music, all you talking about is twerking or sleeping around or doing this or doing that stuff. That's really, and I'm not saying there's a time and place for all of this. So I'm not one of these purist people, but my point is that it's too much stuff that's happening right now. They talking about slashing Social Security. They talking about losing jobs. I mean, how you want to be twerking and they're talking about removing history, possibly shutting down the the African American Smithsonian Museum. They're talking about deleting history from what are we teaching black babies? If they can go to a book and there's no mention of slavery in word, there's no mention of not just our trials, but also our triumphs as a people. We have no mention of that. What happens then, right? How can we bet a future on something that this world is trying to erase and make it non-existent? What happens then? So we can't stay in a space of ignorance or what they call, I think it's the correct word is culpable ignorance, right? Where you choose to disengage. You choose to be like, oh, well, I don't want to deal with that, so I'm going to act like it doesn't exist. Trump exists. He is a real human being. He has a real administration. The things he's writing in his executive order are very, very real, and they have a huge impact on our lives on different levels, right? And we're seeing that. At least to this point, I know as we close out, did you ever think that we would see a day where the Department of Education would be abolished?
No. It's been around my whole life.
This is the same department like public schools. Did you ever think that there would be a day where public school system is abolished? I was talking to a brother this morning, and I said, brother, do you realize, and we were having a friendly conversation, but I said, this is the crazy part. People say, oh, well, you got a school system. We don't have no large infrastructure of homeschooling.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort. You got to be qualified. You got to have the patience. But what about a single mother or a single father who got two?
We tried it in COVID.
It's not happening, dog. It's not happening.
But we tried it in COVID and it was a disaster.
It's not happening. And we ain't got and some of us ain't got the patience for it.
But that's why, we need to vote. That's like we vote too. And that's what I mean. We vote too. We vote with our voices.
We do
We
vote.
use
Yeah,
our
I
voice.
vote. I vote. I vote. But you know what?
Yes.
Vote your conscience. You know what I'm saying? Don't let nobody make you feel like you're doing the wrong thing. Just vote your conscience, right? I think the country will be in a better position if we do vote our conscience, because it keeps this system, this what they call this experiment fresh, right? But democracy only works, quote unquote, democracy only works when people are actually involved and engaged. If you're not involved and engaged, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. There's a final piece on it. There's an effort to completely eliminate the electoral college. I know that's a whole different conversation, but I'm just throwing it out there that there are some fundamental topics or issues on the table that the American people are talking about right now. Organizations, institutions are right now. Look at what's going on with Harvard, right? Like every major thing that we have been taught, Lise, that was going to stick around for hundreds of years, and they have been. Harvard's been around for over 100 years. But these things are finally falling in our lifetime. They are finally coming apart in our lifetime. So what is the responsibility of us as for this generation, right? When we're seeing the change on such a deep level in this country, what is our responsibility? We can play it off and act like things aren't falling apart or aren't changing, or we can adapt, right? And adjust and pivot and get back on the ground and say, all right, now we know these things are changing. But what these things are, these are institutions, these are systems that are changing right before our eyes. And I think we will do ourselves a disservice if we don't change along with them. First, starting with how we see ourselves, how we view the world, and then going into the world to make the change that we want to see.
And I think that's a perfect way to end it, because I couldn't agree more. And you have to use your voice. And right now, stuff is falling. This is the perfect time to try to make things different and put in that change, because Hitler didn't take over by
Don't talk about fascism. Don't do it, Lise.
He just didn't. So you might want to read up how that happened.
Hey, look, have you noticed that the conversations that they're having about Donald Trump is always akin to Adolf Hitler? There are a number of thought pieces. I read it in The Atlantic, The Nation magazine, and other places. There are a lot of things that I've watched the documentary about fascism, and this is very real. It's a neo-fascism, but it's still fascism.
Nonetheless,
there's still some things. And I tell people always say, oh my God, what do we do? Trump is doing this, Trump is doing that. The thing that is going to stop Donald Trump the most is not court decisions. It's not money. The thing that's going to stop and change Donald Trump is going to be the engagement, the enlightenment, the consciousness of the American people. That's the real weapon that the American people can tap into right now. I
couldn't agree more. And before we go, I want people to follow you. So give everybody your social media and how they can get in touch.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Big shout out to Leise for the invite. So I always appreciate having these conversations. She's super dope. But make sure y'all follow me on all social media platforms. On Instagram, you can follow me at The Real Farajii, The Real, REAL, Farajii, FARAJII. You can follow me also on Facebook at Farajii Muhammad. And I think I'm on Threads at The Real Farajii, since it's an extension of IG. But definitely follow me also on Twitter at Farajii. So if you put FARAJII, Farajii Muhammad, The Real Farajii, is going to pop up on all your social media platforms. But again, I thank Leise for the invite to We Vote Too. And I appreciate it. Man, y'all see what my children did, man? Y'all see what... I know some people were like, what's those letters mean? That's the love for my children. I like to have little things to just remind people.
Like, is that what? Okay. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, I knew it stood for something, I just
love having my children. Just a little reminder that, what I'm saying, I got two little people that I'm responsible to and responsible for. So, you know what I'm saying? I love to have them. At least I'm the type of guy that will wear the ugly Father's Day tie.
I love that. There's a lot of people that don't. Yeah. And I love that for you.
Man, they boring.
Yeah. I agree. Wear the macaroni necklace. Boring, I mean, come on.
Wear the macaroni necklace.
You only gonna have it for so long. You know what I mean? Like, these magical moments don't last forever. So wear it out. But make sure you follow Farajii. You're not on Blue Sky. You a progressive. You're not on Blue Sky.
No, I'm not. I'm not on Blue
I'm calling
Sky.
him out.
I'm not on Blue Sky.
Yet.
You know what I'm saying? I'm not on Blue Sky. You know what? I think at a certain point, I'm just like, it's too many spaces. People have 6 social medias. Be like, bro, I'm not checking all that.
I'm not even gonna lie.
You know what I'm
It's
saying?
Skylight, it's Blue Sky, it's Mastodon. It's like, it just keeps going. It's too many of them. But I want to thank you for coming through. This conversation was incredibly engaging. Make sure you follow Farajii because he gives great information. And make sure you are subscribed because he's doing some things. So you don't want to miss it. So make sure.
Oh, yeah. We definitely doing
so some stuff happening. So make sure you follow him so you don't miss anything that he's working on. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of We Vote Too. We will be back again next week going over another topic that helps you better understand you in the voting system. Thanks again.